The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I'm with Mark Treichel. Mark, welcome.
Hey Michael, glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this, Mark. Always enjoy our conversations, and just to set the stage so that people are familiar with you, and then we'll dive in and get you to kind of share more about it. But you're a consultant and advisor to credit union CEOs, leaders. You're also the founder of your own consulting business, which is where you do all that work through. You spent 33 years as an executive director, regional director, director of special actions, pretty much everything under the sun when it comes to the NCUA, which is the National Credit Union Administration. So I'm excited to dive into your story and really explore how you got to where you are today, and really the success that you've been seeing in your business, which I think people will find very interesting because your success has been quite rapid and you're continuing to grow and just to see some really good things. So with that being said, let's go back a little bit, because I want to start, you were at the NCUA for 33 years, and that's a long time, which is not common anymore. Like back in the day, right? It was, I always think of my wife's father. I consider him like a samurai, right? He's Japanese, and yeah, he's pretty much been with one company his whole life. He's still there, even though he could have been retired many years ago. That's just not common these days. I mean, people tend to move around from job to job. Why stay so long?
Well, Michael, that's a great question. I actually had a couple opportunities to leave, but so when you're with the federal government here in the US, it's one of the few organizations that still has a defined benefit retirement plan. So if you choose not to leave after the first 5 or 6 years, you kind of get these handcuffs where it makes some sense to stay so that you can get your pension. And for me, I stayed till I was 58, 2 years longer than beyond when I was eligible. I've got a nice pension that I earned over that time. And so that made it easy to stay. I did have some opportunities to leave, but every time I kind of did the math, I loved what I was doing too. So, I mean, there's obviously that. And NCUA gave me all these great opportunities. I started in Minnesota. We moved to Dallas. We moved to California. We moved to New York. We moved to DC. We moved back to New York and ultimately moved to DC. So we had this great adventure along the way, which also made it fun to stay. But the pension was a big part of it. And now that I've got that pension, it's time to have a little bit of fun and see what I can build as a consultant.
Talk to me more about that, because some people would be very much looking forward to the day when they get to quote unquote retire. And that might mean, spending the days on some beach or just kind of taking it easy. But you did the exact opposite. I mean, you went from having a full-time job, 33 years, really working your way up to the highest level kind of ranks in the organization. You got a nice pension, right? You could have just been in a good place and said, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to work hard and build a business, but here you are doing exactly that, and you're doing exceptionally well. But why? I mean, what was the drive within you that said, I want to go out and try this thing, called building a consulting business?
Sure. So that's a great question. Initially, I was going to dip my toe into it. It's really kind of an homage to my father. So he worked. You talked about working at a place for 33, 34 years. He worked at Northwestern Bell and AT&T for that amount of time, 34 years. And he had opportunities to consult. And he said no. And then later in life, one time he said, Mark, after 2 years, people stopped calling. And, so I took that to heart. I always knew that, and he kind of regretted not doing it. So I knew if I was going to do it, I wasn't going to take a lot of time off. If I had any name recognition and any skill sets built up, I wanted to take advantage of that. And then I had a mentor at work who stayed till he was 65. And he told me he stayed too long because people felt his shelf life wasn't long enough. So I left early enough. And my dad told me, if you're going to do it, give it a shot. So the reality was, I knew I was going to retire in 2020. I knew I was going to try and do some consulting. I'd had people reach out saying, hey, when you retire, give me a call. So I had a couple lined up. And, we were, as you know, I have an RV, and we were planning on heading west and traveling a lot. I was going to do some consulting from the RV. I was going to do some, go to concerts and have some fun and just kind of dabble in it. And then COVID hit. And so, I retired last year at June 30th, and I was up here in the Adirondack Mountains. I was doing a lot of yard work. I knew I wanted to get into it. And then, I got into this podcast called Consulting Success, and I would be out doing yard work, and I was listening to you talk to different consultants. And in each one I listened to, I picked something up. And I tend to be obsessive compulsive, but I tend to do, when I do something, I go all in. So instead of dabbling in it, the COVID pandemic basically created an opportunity where I was stuck up here in the mountains, and I really just threw myself into it. And the success came a little quicker than I anticipated. And at this juncture, and the other thing is, it's fun. I'm really enjoying it. One of the things you taught me was to focus on, now that I'm doing it and I'm not working for somebody else, do what you want, take the projects you want. And so it's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. It doesn't seem like work. And I guess that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, I love that. And you certainly have some great success. I want to come back to one thing that you mentioned. You mentioned kind of like the OCD side of it, but I think there's maybe more inside of that, because some people in the same situation, come 2020, so summer of 2020 or whenever it was, the exact month, you decide, okay, I'm going to start this consulting thing, and then COVID becomes a much bigger issue. Some people would have looked at that and said, well, maybe I'll just kind of put this idea on the back burner, because COVID's going to cause all kinds of restrictions and challenges. And even if COVID hadn't happened, right, there could have been some other economic challenge, just something happened. There's always things that happen in life and around the world. But you looked at that and you actually leaned into that challenging environment situation instead of waiting. And the question I have for you, Mark, is where does that come from inside of you? I mean, have you been this way since you were younger? Did you work on it and develop it? What's kind of giving you that level of confidence to look at a challenge in front of you that might turn many people away, but you just kind of went right into the fire?
Well, my dad taught me that it's the most important skill set you can have is to be persistent. And he loved quotes. There's a Coolidge quote that nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. So I've always been persistent. So we took challenges moving around the country. Every time we moved, we uprooted our family and didn't have any friends to rely on. So we've always been kind of autonomous. And then, so when you add that to, so the agency I worked at, NCUA, they worked out of their homes. So we had a remote staff. So I was kind of used to doing that at first. And then I was an executive. So then I retire and I had, built these hotspots and these phone systems. I was ready to travel because I wanted to be available for my family and clients. So I guess when it happened, it was just like, hey, I've got this extra time. I'm not going to be moving around as much. And like you said, I leaned in and I've grown. So every time I moved around the country, I grew so much by getting exposed to different cultures, different groups, different people, different thoughts. And that diversity of thought kind of just made me stronger and stronger. So it wasn't like it was a big risk. Plus, this was more of a fun project. It's not like I have to pay the mortgage. It's not like I have to get that next client. So it was just something that looked like a challenge. And now when the success came, it was like, wow, let me see what I can build this into. And I've never got to do that. So, I mean, I reported to career NCUA executives or politically appointed boards. And, there were different pressures associated with this. It's how can I serve my client and how can I help them, which ironically in turn can help the agency I used to work with if they succeed. And it's just a blast. So I guess it comes, from way back in my dad.
And I guess I want to just dig a little bit deeper to that. Have you actively worked on developing that mindset from a younger age, or has it just kind of happened and you haven't necessarily been conscious of it, but it's just there? Because you very clearly, Mark, every time that we speak, and then the actions that I see you taking, like how proactive you are and action oriented you are, you certainly aren't one to, like, I believe that you view everything in front of you. You always look for the positive before you look for the negative. When you view a challenge, you don't try and find a reason not to move forward. You think, okay, well, how do I get around this challenge? Where does that come from?
Well, again, it'd be both my parents were just so positive. They always told me I could be anything I wanted to be. They always encouraged me to do things. They always gave me the opportunity to do things. And I do have a glass half full attitude. And there's mantras, I do a little bit of meditating, not as much as I need to, but there's things I can do to keep me on that positive line of thinking. I like mantras. I like quotes. I mean, I've got quotes I saved my entire career where I would, just at a drop of a hat, a situation would come up. I could think of that sentence that would get me focused and refocused on the tasks at hand. And, I like being able to check off that I did something, especially if someone, is expecting me to do it. It just, I don't know, it was born in me a little bit too.
Yeah. So let's now move a little bit forward in this journey. So you've decided that you're going to move out of the NCUA, start your own consulting business. I want to talk more about the RV and the adventure that you've been on the last year or so here. But how do you go about getting your first client? You mentioned that you had a few people had reached out, but just kind of walk us through the actual first client and how did that come about?
Well, so the first client had actually called me before I retired, thought I had, and he said, "Hey, I need to hire you." And I said, it's not till June. I said, "I'm taking July and August off. I will call you in September." And so I called him. He told me the situation he was dealing with. He needed a helping hand with his regulator who was NCUA. And so I did a little bit of reading. I had a book that I had bought about how to structure your consulting contracts and things like that. And he hired me on a 3-month retainer, and he achieved success in December. Then I also, right before I reached out to you, I had a couple of interviews that were done about my retirement. One of these trade associations picked up a story, and that actually led to somebody contacting me, asking me if I was interested. I hit LinkedIn real hard. One of the advantages I had, I did a post on LinkedIn that got a lot of traction. And I took advantage of that, and I was reaching out to connect to all the CEOs at that juncture. So I had about 450 C-suite contacts right out of the gate at retirement that kind of gave me a forum where I could, be heard and be seen. And so those 3 came along easy. And that's also when I was listening to you and your podcasts. And so I joined your group, and you started teaching me. I mean, it was fortuitous because I was just starting and at very foundational points. And you had this program put together where I could just look at each piece of it and say, okay, what can I learn from this and implement it? And, we jumped into it with imperfect action. I learned at NCUA, your line is imperfect action. The one from my quote list is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And, so when you said it, it was like, yeah, that's, I've lived that. So I got out there, I started communicating, with some emails, with some posts on LinkedIn. And so that's it. It just immediately I started getting conversations, and those conversations, they started off, I've never been I guess I've been a salesman selling ideas, to the NCUA board or to my staff, but never where felt like I was selling myself. So I had to get used to that. And the conversations got easier, and the clients started coming in, and then we started getting some success on what they were trying to achieve. Just kind of mushroomed from there.
All right. Well, we'll dig into that here more in just a minute, but I want to go back to your perspective, or kind of the 2020 hindsight. When you look at everything that you've done to this point, Mark, and knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would do differently? Any advice that you might offer somebody who would be in a similar situation to the one that you were in? Yeah, just anything that stands out for you as like, I could have done that differently or better in the early days?
So the one thing I would have done better before I left NCUA is I had a lot of contacts, but I didn't. So now that I'm in the consulting, if I can get an opportunity to get in front of my potential clients, I'm all over it. Leagues and associations and things like that. It's free advertising and an opportunity for them to get to know me. And I had opportunities like that, but I would delegate that more near the end of my career. So I kind of let some of those opportunities to build bonds slip away. And the reality was I didn't anticipate to do this that much. If I realized I was going to, I would have approached that end of my career a little bit differently. And so then jumping to now that I'm consulting, if there's things I would do differently.
No, I mean, it's more about the question is, I think you answered what I was looking for, which is what you would do differently, kind of if you had the perspective or the benefit of hindsight. And just to maybe capture that or summarize it, you're saying that when you were in that role, you maybe delegate some of those opportunities for you to build stronger relationships with associations, potential clients, potential points of leverage or distribution to get in front of ideal clients because you were a busy leader, right? And that wasn't a priority for you. But now knowing what you know, those relationships could have maybe helped to springboard or just accelerate some of the growth. Not that you're doing shabby right now, but just that would have been one thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that it would have, I could have nurtured those had I realized what I was going to be doing. And like you said, I was extremely busy doing what I had to do. And I had great people who could go out and do that and get that message out. But I didn't really embrace the opportunities that were there to build that network.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Okay, so then let's keep going through this journey. You're listening to the Consulting Success podcast, which feels funny to me because there you are. You're back now from Florida, right, in the Adirondacks, the mountains. So you were listening to the podcast. What was going on in your mind? What did you feel that time? Hey, I need some help with this, or what did you feel kind of least prepared for that made you reach out and ultimately join and be a part of the Clarity Coaching Program?
Well, there was just so much I didn't know. And, by listening, you'd do interviews like this and I'd listen to them and I'd pick a couple things up from every one and I'd go, wow, I need to do that. I need to do that. And then, there's the intro. Hey, if you're interested, give us a ring. And, I talked to my wife and I talked to your cousin, Sam, right here where I'm sitting. And she listened to it. When I got off the phone, I said, what do you think? She said, you got to do this. She's half owner of the consulting firm. And she said, those guys sound great. They're going to take you to the next level. And so I just knew that you knew the business. And so the other thing is at NCUA, when we got new executives, we hired coaches for them. And so the thought of hiring a coach, the idea of it, people can look at that like, well, I don't need a coach. Or you can look at that like, well, let me see what that coach can teach me. And so the podcast showed me that I could learn. And then, wow, getting on the calls with you and getting on with the group, where we have these dialogues where you have your topics and then we have the opportunity to ask questions and then we can kind of feed off each other. It's like learning on steroids. And then also with me being at my foundation, it's not like I'm 10 years in and I have things and systems to undo. I'm starting them all. And so, it was a perfect fit.
Right. And what have you seen in your business since that point in terms of new clients, changes that you've made in terms of your approach to pricing in comparison to what you were doing before with your 3 initial clients? Kind of just walk us through what are some of the biggest maybe structural changes or marketing changes or just even kind of outcomes and results that you've seen to this point.
So outcomes and results, I had 3 clients. I've added, I think I'm on client number 24 since then. I've had, you have spikes. I've had some really, really good months. I've had some months where there have been a couple clients that have come in, but you taught me about, building the pipeline, getting out there as a thought leader. And you said something about, it's all about what the ideal client is and who is it that you want to work with. And so I focused on that a lot and I reined in and got more of a rifle approach to what I was offering. And I mean, the first conversation you and I had, you said, how many clients, what is it you're hoping to make and how many clients do you need? And it was just so logical that it's very appropriate to have a rifle approach to it, do what I want, because I don't need that many clients to, and I can't serve all that many with what I want to do on the retainer side of things. So that was a big positive. And, so CRM, putting a CRM system in place, making sure I'm out there in front of the potential clients. But you said, once you identify that perfect client, they have to know you exist. If they don't know you exist, they're not going to hire you. It's like, well, that was like a lightning bolt. It's right. So I got to get out there. And, when I used to have to do speeches, I would try and boil complex things down into simple, short messages. And that kind of worked real well into doing blogging. I've done a little bit of videos. I need to do that. And then I can take those blogs and I shorten those up into LinkedIn posts and constantly reminding my ideal clients that I'm here. And, I get a couple calls a week where people say, hey, NCUA is coming in, or they just left. I didn't like how it went. How can you help me? And then I walk through, some of the successes I've already had. And, I walk through those first few stories with my first few clients. And, the other thing that's changed is on the front end, you feel like you're selling. You feel like, okay, I got to get this client, and that you feel like you're chasing the client. And at this juncture, after having done it so much, it's more like they have to catch me. They have to make it onto the list of the small number of clients that I am able to work with. And then, as far as you asked about pricing, what's happened with pricing, I've achieved a point where I've kind of hit the pricing model that I like for my retainer. Early on, the first ones you offer up, you're kind of wondering what makes the most sense. And then you see what has success. And, at some juncture, I might need to look at that. If I have too many clients, I might have to look at, tweaking that a little bit because of the supply and demand. So that's a laundry list of some of the things that.
So the other thing I wanted to hit on it as well here, Mark, is you've encountered something that I think many others, and we've seen many others also hit, which is transitioning from corporate into consulting. The mindset often begins that, I want to be a solo independent consultant, work with clients. I don't want to have to deal with, team and employees and all that kind of stuff. Like that's why I left the corporate world, but I'm glad to just have my own time and kind of be the master of my own domain. But as your business has continued to see greater and greater growth and you're serving more clients, there's more demand for your expertise, you've started to look at how to scale, how to grow, how to bring in more team and do that in a much more structured and kind of systematized way. And I think it'd be helpful if you could speak to a moment for a moment around your experience and, when did that light bulb go off for you? And how would you kind of compare and contrast what you were seeing before and what your mindset was before around team and around growth and where it is today and what lessons you've kind of learned from that?
Great question. So it was great to not have bosses. It's great to not have subordinates and all the pressures that go with that. And, my spouse helps me with a lot of the administrative things. My daughter on the front end helped me with some videos. Thank God for that. She helped set up my website. So then, so you start getting into team. Like I hire someone to work on my website. I hire coaches to help me, to help me on the consulting side. I hire someone at payroll. I hire CRM. So those systems, there's these systems out there where I can start to learn them, which has been fascinating. But then there's also subcontractors, which I've started to kind of look at how I can take some of those things and delegate some of those, because me spending my time on that is not the best use of my time. But on top of that, so having the job that I had at NCUA and moving all around the country, there's people retiring from NCUA every day. There's people who are already retired. And they all have little niches. While I did a lot of exam things and I was an executive, there's these subject matter experts out there, which are a great opportunity for me to partner with. And I've got 2 former NCUA folks that I'm subcontracting with. So I've added them to my team, which allows me to leverage. It allows me to scale. And even longer term, beyond that, I've got, I know who the best and brightest are of those that are going to retire. And I've got a short list of folks I'm going to add to that team. So I can, ironically, I was a leader. I was an executive for 22 years. And I can see myself kind of start gravitating back towards building a team. And it was real fun. I had one of the projects we took on, it was actually a deliverable where someone wanted us to analyze something. And I sent it to one of my experts and he looked at it and I got it back and I gave it to my other guy who is like more of a generalist, but he had this way of digging into the internet and found some other things. And I got this smile because it was like, wow, I've got my team back. It was what I was doing before, but I'm doing it from the other side. And so, and then again, so when I started, it was like, let's dabble in it. And then it was like, wow, there's really a need here. And I really enjoy, the service side of it and helping these credit unions achieve success. But it's also kind of fun to see what I can build. And so now that, again, so I'm now in, now that I'm all in, it's like, well, I need to get systems in place, because maybe I'll do this 10 years, maybe I'll do it 15 years, but there's definitely a need for it. There's a market for it. So, you and I kind of had some conversations about putting those systems in place so that at some juncture, maybe this is something that I'd look to sell to somebody else who's retired from NCUA 10, 15 years from now. And so the other cool thing too is that team, when one of the things when people retire, they go, what am I going to do? I miss that social side of it. And I've got, contractors that I've pursued that are going to be coming on or who have, they're going, I like staying connected. And it keeps your mind sharp. It keeps the connections. It keeps that sense of community. And that's been a real part of this too.
I love that. I'm so excited to see where you continue to take this, because it's so powerful. I think when for many consultants, when you start off and you're just kind of focused on doing things yourself, and you might have good reasons for not wanting to build a team, but when you get to a point where you actually realize that to make a greater impact and to grow more, you can't do it all yourself. The idea of that initially maybe had someone hesitate to bring people on, when you view it as a way to actually buy back some of your time, have more of a community, right? A way to accelerate growth and to be able to make a greater impact. Like you can just do more, right? It becomes a lot of fun to start putting those different pieces together and do it as a team, as a family. So I'm really excited that you're going down that path as well.
Well, Michael, even so, yesterday I got a call from a potential client, and he has a meeting with NCUA tomorrow. And he said, I'd like you to take a look at this. And I said, hey, I've got a real tight schedule. I said, I got a guy in Montana who works with me, and you get it to me. My next call is with him. And I already had my team member look at it. Before I got on with you, he and I, he briefed me on what he thought needed to be done. And now I'm going to look at it when we get off. And it just makes me smile, is because he has great quality work, and he makes me be able to expand what I can do and how much assistance I can provide out there.
So one thing we need to talk about as well is that you spent the last year or so living, and working and building your business from an RV. And you've shown me pictures. I mean, we've done calls when you've been in the RV as well. So I've had the ability to kind of see inside the RV a little bit. And it's a pretty badass RV. I mean, it's really cool. It's the outside and the inside. But I mean, I remember seeing you send that photo from the outside. You were somewhere, I think, on the Florida coast, right? So you had the ocean in the back. It's just beautiful and just look really cool. But first of all, like, why? I mean, you and your wife are in the RV. You're driving all around. You're exploring new places. You're by the ocean. You're in tropical climates. Like, it seems really cool. But why do that? What was the drive for you guys, first of all, to get in the RV and have that experience?
Well, great question. We both camped a little earlier in our lives and we got away from it. But 2017, we went to a music festival in Washington State called The Gorge. And the Dave Matthews Band plays all Labor Day. They play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We met some new friends out there and we tent camped. And at the end of the week, my wife said to me, Mark, we've been outside for 7 straight days. We had not been in a building. And I was like, yeah, and it's been awesome. So we came back. We thought we might get a teardrop, that you pull behind your car. Then we looked at a pop-up, and then we discovered the Class B RV, which is basically a van converted into an RV. And, I knew if we were going to do it, I wanted it to be something that had a small footprint. And we threw ourselves into YouTube and learned, which 5, vans we might like. And we actually flew down to Florida, and the Tampa RV show is the biggest RV show in the US 2 years ago, and fell in love with the one we got. I bought it before I retired, and we were gonna go check out nature. We were gonna go to national parks, state parks, concerts, and I was gonna dabble in consulting. We had the mountain place. We knew we wanted to end up in Florida as residents and buy a little condo, but this is kind of the perfect in between where we can go explore the US. You can drive off the road into, a little town where they have a museum from some guy who invented something in that city. And there's this other thing that I may have talked to you before. It's called Harvest Hosts. So it's a group you can join. And, it's companies that run breweries or wineries or llama farms. And you call them up and say, hey, can I stay there tonight? And you go to the brewery, you buy a couple of beers, and they let you keep your RV on their private property. And that's really an exciting, way to reasonably get around the country. And so we kind of had that adventure. And again, we moved so much, I guess moving every day didn't seem like that big a deal.
What were you most concerned about? Because so you want to have the adventure, right? And very clearly you're focused on lifestyle, right? You're not making big sacrifices in your lifestyle to fit the business. You've I think from what I've seen, put your lifestyle as a priority and then made adjustments in the structure of your business and what you do to support your lifestyle, not the other way around. But were you concerned about anything and from a business perspective and just being able to be successful while you're out on the road?
I think my biggest concern was the ability to have to be able to do the Zoom, to be in South Dakota and have connectivity. And, I threw a lot of research. There's a group out there, Mobile Internet Aficionados, who is fantastic. They've been living out of their RV for 10 years. Chris and Cherie, these consultants who built a great business. And they taught me how to get, it's like flying a plane. You have two engines in case one of them goes out. I have coverage on every provider in hotspot, and I have coverage on every provider on phone. So if there is coverage, I'm going to have it. And so if I was going to be offering up retainers, I didn't want people not to be able to get me. And that was a concern. And, Marie, my spouse, is just so flexible as far as, I got a potential new client call. It's like, well, go ahead, take it. We can push dinner back an hour, or we can stop an hour earlier to make sure you have coverage along the way, and we'll get there a little bit later. And I guess the other thing is I don't drive a lot in one day. I keep the trip short. So when we do it, we know that I've built flexibility into the schedule so that whatever happens, we'll be able to accommodate it.
So when you look back at the experience, I know that you've been doing a kind of a series on LinkedIn, right? Where you've been chronicling your experience of the business and being an RV and all that. What would maybe be a couple of lessons that you think for a consultant, an entrepreneur, that you've learned from this experience that you feel might be valuable to share?
If you really feel like you could get out and do it, give it a shot. Now is someday. Don't wait. And I ran into a lot of people working from the road. COVID changed the world as far as telework. I would, walk through the parking or walk through the RV park, and you'd see people on their phones. You'd see people inside on laptops. It's a real community. And I guess the other side of it is the people who do this are really, really a really good community. They're helpful people. They're happy people. And get out, if you feel like you don't want to travel because of COVID, or you don't want to get on planes, get yourself an RV, because you're in the same bed every night, and you can keep your distance, yet you can have fun and you can still see the world. There's a lot of activity out there, even during COVID, where we were able to be safe, yet we were able to, be out in society and get redundant systems. And also check out the state park system is fantastic, particularly in Florida. It's just absolutely beautiful. And we got reconnected with nature, seeing turtles and alligators and the pelicans. I never realized how fascinating and cool those creatures were. In Flagler Beach, they'd be flying overhead all the time. And there's something about that grounds you and reminds you that there's more to life than that next client. There's more to life than that next call. There's the beautiful world to see.
Right. Well, Mark, you certainly know about how to run a successful consulting business from an RV. That should maybe be the title of our episode here. But I think, even beyond an RV, just the main message that I take from that, and as I've been, kind of following your journey throughout here, is like live life now, right? Don't put off things that are important for you. And also recognize that you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a consultant, can really create whatever you want. You first have to be clear about what you want to create, but then figure out what's important to you, prioritize your lifestyle and things that are really meaningful, and then structure the business to support that. And when you do, you'll find that you're able to actually create that. But if you don't, then you'll get pulled in all these different directions by what you think you should do, or what society tells you to do, or what clients want from you. But you've done such an amazing job of being clear about what is meaningful for you and for your family, and then going after it relentlessly. And I think, you mentioned a really powerful keyword before, which is persistence. And I know you've been very persistent with your marketing and reaching out to people and being consistent with that. And it's certainly paid off and so much more to come. So Mark, I want to thank you so much for coming on here today. And I also want to make sure that people can learn more about you, the work that you do, and check out some of maybe your posts, your videos. They can maybe try and find the RV there so that they can have a clear kind of image of what that's all about. But where's the best place for them to go?
Okay, so you can reach me by phone at 407-493-1180. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Mark Treichel, and maybe credit unions after it. And then my website is my name, marktreichel.com. And my email is mark@marktreichel.com.
All right.
I'd love to talk to people about consulting, credit unions, RVs, Dave Matthews, you name it.
Now, Mark, I got to warn you, tens of thousands of people are going to be listening to this. So you might want to rethink whether you want your phone blowing up or not. I just want to encourage everyone that's listening to this, please do not call Mark just to say hi. Well, I don't know, maybe you want them to say hi, but be thoughtful about your outreach. I would encourage you maybe to send a message or an email first. I don't want Mark to get inundated with phone calls nonstop. Just respect his time the same way that you would want your time respected. But if you want us to cut that out, Mark, let me know. I don't want you getting bombed with contacts, but I know that certainly people would appreciate it. And I want to encourage everyone to check out at least Mark's website or go to his LinkedIn profile, connect with him, because I think you can learn a lot from his journey, regardless of what stage you're at in your consulting business. Whether you're further along, there's some great life lessons that you can learn from Mark. And if you're earlier stage, a really great model for success. So thanks again for coming on, Mark.
Michael, thank you so much. And thank you for helping me on this journey. I couldn't have done it without you.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.